Welcome to Durham Creative Voices Rising. I am Antonio Alaniz, your host and a visual artist from Durham, North Carolina. Join us as we explore the intersection of art, healing, and community rebuilding efforts in 2024 amidst the challenges of COVID 19 and its aftermath. This podcast explores the role of the arts in public health and how creativity can promote wellness and equity for people in Durham and North Carolina. Let's envision a brighter future for everyone, with artists leading one of the many ways toward innovative solutions and a world of possibility. Welcome, welcome. I am so excited to have Willie Acosta here. My name is Antonio Alaniz, and I am hosting the Durham Creative Voices Rising. And we are doing this project to think about how we can use the arts, the creative voices, the stories that normally we don't get to hear in this kind of work moving forward. And I'm inviting today the amazing Willie Acosta, founder and creator of Swim, who is also an artist. Yes, exactly. Who's also an artist, a writer, public speaker, social entrepreneur, and I met Willie as a spoken word artist. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Willie. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm excited for this conversation. Um, and feeling mentally clear, spiritually clear. It's springtime, so energy's rising, everything's back in motion. So yeah, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well, Willie. Super excited to talk to you today. Um, I always look forward to our conversations, and this is the very first conversation we've had as a podcast. So thank you for allowing me to be in the space. I'm excited always to see you. I've met you in many mental health related arts programming. Huge shout outs to Pupusas for Education, absolutely to Cecilia Polanco and all of the crew behind P4E and People for Equity. Wanted to just welcome you again and thank you for the invitation, for the acceptance of being here today. So I'm super excited to see you. So I want to ask you briefly, Willie, all our conversations before programming that we've had in the past have revolved around using art as a tool for improving circumstances that are hurting our communities right now. I'm very interested in getting to know your story, how you arrived to using art as a tool to process a lot of the things that we've talked in the past. Can you tell us briefly about how you came to spoken word poetry?
Wow. Great question. An important question. So briefly, not to make a long story, make it short, but it was around 2015, 2016 that I kind of had like a self-discovery of being an artist. Um, because I feel like we're all artists, we're all creatives, it's just like when you find it and you're like, whoa. Um, but it was through dark times. It was through times that I was like emotionally and mentally drowning and had to find myself. And that's how swim came to life. You know, me swimming through the deep, dark waters of like, the unknown and, the crisis and, unfortunate things that happen in life, like, things like that are financially or, heartbreak or, even identity crisis of like not knowing who I am at certain points of my life. But it led me into writing. Writing's like my main um, tool to express myself. Because when I was young, I didn't talk a lot, so the paper was like my best friend. Um, but yeah, it came through like dark times of me having to navigate emotions and a lot of like mental health stuff, and it allowed me to just like process things and allow, sometimes we need something external to show us like a mirror, a reflection of ourselves, And for me, it was writing, it was poetry, it was spoken word, it was music, and it was just me. It wasn't even for the world at first. It was just for me to get it out of my inner world and get it on paper. And it just allowed me to really find myself through dark times.
Thank you, Willie, for that summary introduction to your whole artistry or the beginning. I like to fast forward to COVID-19, the pandemic. As you know, the podcast series Durham Creative Voices Rising is about that, using the focus of how did an how did you as an artist create a world that is, or rather, how are you contributing to a world that is rebuilding itself? And I wanted to ask you this question because a lot of the work that I've seen you do has been inviting youth, inviting people around to participate in this craft and poetry and all these music projects that you've had. Tell us how the pandemic impacted this ability of you to process things, and how have you contributed to creating this world that is essentially rebuilding. And again, for context, this is April 2024.
Indeed, indeed. Great question, Antonio. Because it makes me even like reflect and think about things even deeper of like how I went about things and navigated the pandemic and the COVID-19 crisis. And for everyone, it was scary times. Our world changed and we had no idea what was going on. For artists, especially, folks that were trying to do it full time or already doing it full time or, were making money or making a living off of it. Um, it stopped that completely for artists. And I felt like going through the pandemic in 2020, 2021, especially, we lost a lot of aspects of community. Um, we lost a lot of aspects of like expressing ourselves. We were literally in lockdown and we were restricted and didn't know how to move or how to go about things. So for me, it was like, um, I had time. Like I always say, for me, the pandemic was like I saw it as an opportunity of just having abundance of time to create. And I would just be at home in my garage, just creating a whole bunch of different things and so many beautiful things coming out of me. And some of the beautiful things were, darkness and emotional stuff and things like that where I was finding myself even more during the pandemic, to be honest. And what started happening was that I used my home as a place for artists to come together to express themselves, share their art, to know that they're not by themselves. And now I have uh, a space called the portal, and that's kind of what you were referencing to, where the portal is now this commercial space that I utilize to bring artists and communities together for multidisciplinary types of arts to be showcased and displayed. But this started in the pandemic, and a lot of people don't know this, where I use like my backyard for people to come together and do circles of sharing and people creating food where food is also culinary arts, right? And we would share food together and we would perform in my backyard and it was so great. But it was during those times where I realized that I'm like, wow, one of the most essential things of us being humans is human connection, you know, and the way we connect through art. And that was one of the scariest things for me during the pandemic was us having being on the edge, like that threshold, the potential of us losing human connection, and how do we interact with each other. And I found a way for that to still exist in a time that it looked like it was obsolete and art was the medium. Art was where it was like people were able to connect even if they weren't able to relate in other topics. So I really used the pandemic and to really hone in on my own art, but it started becoming a thing where I was like, not that I need, but I felt like, yeah, I need everyone to feel like this. I need everyone to know that they're not alone. I need everyone to know to express themselves, especially in a moment of darkness, which it was unknown. I always say darkness is the unknown and the known is the light. That's why I'd be like, oh, enlighten me, or I'm enlightened, when you have information. But lack of information is the darkness. It's like, hey, you kept me in the dark. You didn't tell me about this. So it was a moment of darkness of like, what is the world now? What is happening? And what do I do with my art? So I used that time to try to bring people together on a small scale. And that eventually turned into what is now the portal, where on a larger scale, we're bringing multiple types of communities together to showcase and display their art and to create together.
Thank you, Willie. I really want to thank you for that context. It's super important to bring also your organizing community
Mhm.
organizer self and artist. So you're building from being an organizer and an artist. So you're creating a space for you and your community. I want to focus also on how you mentioned the isolation, the
Mhm.
lack of connection, physical, because of the pandemic in those
Right.
years. A lot of what I feel as an artist when I mean reconstruct or coming together and imagining a newer future is essentially healing from a lot of the things that happen, right? From being separated from our friends, from our families, from anyone else. I want to ask you, and I mentioned this because you used the word um, connection, relating, expression, and I want to give listeners some ideas of how you promote healing through expression, right? That's either
Mhm.
metaphorically or physically through poetry or through music.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great question. Oh, um, okay, I can start with this. Um, what's the opposite of depression? Expression, right? To when we're going through depression, and I'm using this just as an example of like one of the type of ways we could heal. We go, I look at depression in two ways. It could be deep pressure, or when you're deep pressed is also deep rest, right? And one way to come out of that is to externally radiate your energy, express yourself, right? And it starts unblocking all those things inside of you. Um, there's this book called The Body Keeps the Score. Um, and just in summarization, it's saying that there's things that get trapped in our body, like trauma and experiences that we go through. And I feel like, and you, Antonio, oh my goodness, like the work that you've been doing, especially with these podcasts, are so important because right now we're going to start seeing the effects that are coming out of the pandemic. You know, we all think, oh, we're out of it, it's done, we're free again, we outside. But we're about to start seeing, and it's gonna become evident, and everything's gonna start surfacing and coming out of our pores, and all the poison's about to come out, right? Because poison affects you twice. It affects you on the way in, and it affects you on the way out. And right now, all that stuff is coming out, and us healing, right, especially through the arts, is us expressing ourselves, is us getting all that stuff out, right? All that purging that needs to, you know, right, escape out of our system so our body gets cleared. And through healing arts, expression, right, I would say it comes in many forms. Like I said, expressed earlier for myself, like I mentioned, writing is so important for me because I don't have an outlet of like talking a lot to people or really expressing my emotions. But for other people, it could be dancing, it could be cooking, it could be, making music like musicians, or, it could be video production. It's so many types of arts right? But the thing is that the art empowers the heart, right? And that's our core zone, right? I'm gonna play on some words because I love words. Because words are worlds. It allows us to understand things. And the core zone is the corazón, right? And that's your heart that allows you to express that art. But we need that heart pumping healthy, you know? And through the art, it allows that replenishment to happen, you know? So it's important for us to heal and for us to have space. And it comes in a level that it's also in solitude. You know, a lot of us create in solitude, create our art by ourselves. But also part of the healing comes in the human connection. Part of the healing comes in being able to share things with others and interact with others and for others to support you, you know. I'm a big advocate for like self-love, and I feel like healing comes from self-love. And but my through my journey of these last years of loving myself and, you know, encouraging others to love themselves, it comes through their art because they could see their love in a physical form, you know. They could see the things that they love being created outside of themselves. But also a big aspect of healing is community love and, you know, having people being able to share feedback, right? When when you're giving food for thought, right? Your art is food for thought for a lot of people. You're creating something for people to think or activate or to, you know, stimulate their mind. That food for thought, it's good to get fed back, to get feedback, you know? And that feedback is nutrition for people that allows them to heal. So those are important aspects that come with the arts, but art is a part of us just being human, you know? And those are the main aspects that we need to amplify, especially through this journey of, you know, coming out of the pandemic where a lot of us haven't really dealt fully with those effects that we're going to start feeling now, especially mentally, emotionally. How do we come back and interact in society? What does that look like, you know?
Yes, Willie, absolutely. I really wanted to create this space because I've seen in previous interviews and also in my personal um, reflection how these 4 years have happened so fast and how I have not had time to process. And now that you mentioned that we are also coming out of it still, we're going to be thinking about what happened, right? So that's going to come back, and it's time for us to stop and think, continuing to stop and think, because
Definitely.
this world has been pushing me to create, to do this, to do that, and very little time to stop and think and reflect. So
Wow.
so for us as artists, we use art to reflect on what has happened.
Yes. Yes. Great point.
So thank you. I want to relate this conversation to many levels of artists, people who may be um, starting to express. One of the things that I find is that sometimes people want to express something, but through perfectionism, sometimes they don't feel that they can express themselves because they have to draw a certain way, sound a certain way, draw a certain way. And I wanted to ask you, what is your advice to people who are going through a lot of things and they have no idea how to start because of fear holding them back of expressing themselves?
Wow. That's such a good question because all your questions are great. But that's such a good question because I've dealt with that myself. Um, and sometimes I still deal with it. Even at this stage of my journey of being an artist, where it's been a good like almost a decade that I've been like conscious of me being an artist and creating consciously. But that is one of I don't want to call it a flaw because I feel like it's something sometimes we strive for. But it could be a challenge to overcome this perfectionism mind state of like, oh, this has to sound like this has to look like this. And it could hinder you, you know, it could hinder the process of you wanting to create further. It could hinder the process of you releasing your art to the world and showing it to others. Um, I would say on a personal level for me, it's like time and space, right? Time and space being a part of your art, and then time and space being apart from your art, right? Where sometimes when we're just working on something too long or too much, or you know, having that perfectionism mindset, like you're not going to give it a break. You're just looking at it and you're like, no, this is not it, this, it got to look like this, or no, this doesn't sound right. But really it's like if you could take a break from it and then come back to it later, you're going to look at it so different, and it's like, whoa, this is kind of nice, this is kind of good, you know. And then it helps you be like, okay, I was kind of, you know, tripping a little bit. I was like lost in the sauce, you know. I always like to say, like, sometimes when you're too in something, you can't see it clearly, you know. Sometimes you got to take a step back and you're like, whoa, okay, I see how it looks now. Um, but another thing that comes with that, and wow, what a great question now that I'm thinking about it, because it's like so many aspects in artistry and for creatives is that we're so free spirited, right? So we're like, woo, all over, and you know, frequencies are high, and you know, what we need more as artists and creatives is being grounded and finding our ways to get grounded so we could see things clearly. Like it's good to have that free spiritedness and that airiness and, you know, being all across the spectrum, because that's what allows us to, like, whether we channeling this art or getting the downloads for these ideas, or you know, whatever it is, for us to be free. It's important to be free. It's important for us to, you know, not have no rules, you know. But then the groundedness is what allows us to, like, all right, let me not look at this in an emotional way, because sometimes the emotional part is the part that wants you to be perfect. You know, sometimes we think it's the logical part that it's like, oh no, this has to look like this has to sound like this or whatnot. But the emotional part, it's like, you know, I'm in fear that this is not great enough. I'm in fear that I'm gonna be rejected for this. You know, I'm in fear that people are not gonna like it. It's not good enough. But when we get grounded and we find our way to silence ourselves, silence the mind, you know, and also at the same time, like that stillness of being away from the art, it allows you to be like, no, I created this because this is what I wanted to create. And the way it comes out is the way it's supposed to be. Um, so it's a good balance that we have to find. But it's also, I feel like, whoa, like it's connecting in my head right now. It's also side effects of the pandemic and the factors of, you know, socializing, especially now. It's like, oh yeah, I had all this time to create by myself, and there was no one there judging me or, you know, saying anything about it. And now it's like we're all out here sharing and doing this stuff, and it's like, yeah, it gives you anxiety, it's antsy. So it's important to know why you create art, right? Because initially we don't create for others, we don't create for the world, but eventually it's for the world. You know, eventually your art doesn't really belong to you, but you always got to remember your why. And it's like, whether it's for my mental health, or, you know, it's because this happened to me one time and this is how I cope with things, or, you know, I just love to create. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel whole. So remembering the reasons why we create, because with society now, especially after the pandemic, where like art and creativity is blowing up now, we are all like, you know, creating content and all this stuff where it's like, oh, we're creating for outside of ourselves now. We're creating to get more attention. We're creating because we're trying to funnel in some business stuff or whatever. So it's stuff like that where like that's been an outcome of the pandemic. It's like creativity's on an all-time high, but now it's like they're trying to make us machines to keep pumping out art, more and more content, more. So it's a fine line, but just remembering your why and staying grounded. And at the end of the day, this is the last thing I'll say about this. All that matters is that if you like it. And if you like it, that's all that matters.
Thank you. You have just summarized a lot of the things that I've heard in previous interviews, and how I liked how you gave concrete ways of addressing those things.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you so much for that, for those points. Um, this conversation can go so many ways when we meet. We could talk about AI, we could talk about
Yeah,
authenticity, content creation. We can save that for another time.
of course.
It's so hard to be focused. But
Yeah.
one thing that I did want to highlight is when you say you being grounded, I understand that. But also that to me sounds like you are grounding yourself. And a lot of the things that I see about being an artist is yes, grounding ourselves, but also looking at external support from
Mm,
organizations, community members, your community,
yeah.
whoever that is. And the next question to you, Willie, is more, what do you need or what do you wish you have? What do you wish you want to have, or maybe you already have it, to support you as an artist? And this can go however you want to. It could be financially, it could be however. I just want to open that space for that. How do you want other people to support you?
Wow. That's deep. That's makes me really think. Um, wow. I'm usually not speechless, but it's like it's very easy for me to always think of how I could support people and other artists. I never really think of like how that would look like for me and what I would desire for that to look like. Of course, financially, that always helps, because as an artist, we all know we have to do multiple things to keep the boat afloat. So financial support is always great. Um, all right. I feel like financial support, but it's like a hybrid, a mix of also like people that wanna, how can I say this? Support would look like people financially supporting me, but also being a part of it. Like I don't know how to really explain that, but it's like having the support where it's like I'm able to interact with folks and them letting me know how the art impacts them. I feel like that does so much for me when someone tells me like, "Hey Willie, like I was reading this thing you wrote like 2 years ago and I can't get this certain line out of my mind." Or even at the last retreat that I saw you at, one of the participants there told me that it was the day after you were there when you did your workshop, and you kind of gave me a few minutes to, let everybody know what I do. One of the youth that were there ended up listening to Spoken Words in Motion to swim that night, and the next day they came and they were like, "Yo, Willie, I listened to your project. This was my favorite song." Um, so stuff like that. It would definitely be a mixture of more financial support if I could get some investors out there. Hello, hello. But also people just like being able to share what are the things that impact them or they like I love feedback. Like I was just mentioning before, like feedback, it's feeding me back, it's nutrition, it allows me to have more fuel to keep going. So support in that way, because like I do get support to a certain extent where it's like, I have communities of folks that are always looking out for me and always checking in and, hey Willie, when's the next project, when are you doing the next thing? But I also I like in-depth detailed stuff, and I love like diving deep into things. I would love for, I don't know, if people want to write some reviews for me. Because I don't know. Even though I create for myself, I want to make sure that like I'm doing the right thing for the people with my creations. So yeah, that's the best answer I got right now. Maybe I'll give you another one in the future.
And that's okay, really. I think that many of these questions, like many other questions we have in our lives, will continue to, the answers will continue to appear as we gain more experience and more perspective. So thank you for allowing us to be invited into that stream of consciousness thinking that you just
Indeed.
provided. Um, so if I'm getting this correct, and I also relate this, being supported as an artist to me is people coming out to exhibitions, right? Coming out to workshops like the one that you mentioned when we did a self portrait at P4E's mental health retreat.
Right.
So it can include financial, like commissioning pieces, reaching out to you, commissioning uh, something, but also just sharing.
Yeah.
And like you said, listening to the project and sharing back what the favorite line was.
Yeah. That's so important.
Testimonies and reviews. So there we go. And also one word you mentioned, investment. So reach out to Willie.
Hit me up.
There you go. And now that the year last time we talked, Willie, you mentioned that you were growing and you created a new space for the portal, right? Can
Yes,
you fill me in the last few months?
of course. And for the people watching this, I'll summarize um, from beginning to where we're currently at. So, like I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast interview, the portal is a creative space um, for a community of artists of different disciplinaries. It started at my house. Originally, the portal was my garage, which was my creative space. It then became like my whole house and the backyard during the pandemic. And then it became in 2021, we were able to get our first commercial space on NC State campus, and it was 750 square feet originally. And that was from 2021, where it's like we're still in the midst of the pandemic, coming out of it towards the tail end, 3 quarters. And I was like, we need a space to bring people together, like human connection. This is important. This is like the main thing that got out of the equation these past couple years. So we went from 750 square feet, 2021, 2022. Then in the beginning of 2023, we were able to expand to a suite next door that was empty. And we went from 750 square feet to a little bit over 2,000 square feet. And that was this past year of my life, 2023. I call it the year of expansion, where a lot of things in my life were expanding, and especially the portal, which is so important because that's for the people, that's for the communities, that's for the artists, the creatives. So 2023 was a wild ride. I learned so much about myself, what was I capable of, and the people around me, learning those who did support, which was very helpful, and how to keep those people around and feed them back. And then also going through the parts of like filtering out the folks that weren't really supporting or weren't in had didn't have the best interest in the overall picture. So going navigating through that while we're expanding, going through these great things at the portal, and 2023 was amazing. Like we did so much more. We did so originally we used to throw events once a month. This past year ended up being us throwing 4 5 events a month. So that was the big difference. And we've been very successful, very fortunate. I'm so grateful, always grateful. Every day I'm grateful. Even when it gets tough, I'm grateful. Um, and then now a year later, which I did not expect. We're expanding the space again. So the portal, we're actually now moving to a whole new building because the old building didn't even have more space for us to expand. So we're moving to a whole new building, which is about a few blocks down on NC State campus. And this one is a little bit over 4,500 square feet. And we're going to expand our retail space now. We're expanding the event space where before we had a capacity around like 75 to sometimes 100 people. We weren't, supposed to have 100, but hey, that's why we had to move. Now our new event space is going to hold over 300 people with our retail space, which is going to showcase local artists, products, and art and other services. All right, it's going to be about 2,000 square feet of just retail space and then about 2,500 feet of just event space, you know? So it's a big level up, but we're going to be able to do a lot of great things for artists and creatives and for the community and for people that just love to enjoy art. We're going to create an art gallery in there as well. So Antonio, you already know. You want to, showcase your stuff in our gallery. But other than that, it's really the mindset of like, yeah, this is great. We're able to, you know, um, make a living and create funding and resources and generate revenue off of our art and do that as a community, as a collective of folks. And yeah, that's great. I'm always grateful for that aspect that it's like, wow, like after all these years, I'm able to like actually live this. Like this is my everyday life. But my favorite part is that like just how I mentioned the event space of, oh, we were going from like 75 to 100 people. Now we're going to go over 300 people. Now we're going to be able to impact even more per event, per time that we're doing these things. And that's so important for me because it's like when great things are happening, sometimes they're not shown and they're not exposed that much. And, you know, there's more focus in society of like what's negative or more dramatic. So things like this, it's like I'm like, this is just the beginning still. Like it's only been about 2.5, 3 years, So being at this level right now that we're gonna be able to have bigger space to display other people. Because it's not just about me. It's not like I created the portal just for Willie. Willie Contraband is always gonna be the main face. It's not even that. Sometimes I like being in the background and being able to watch and being like, wow, now we have even more space. We're gonna go even bigger with the production, with the quality of sound. We're gonna have a bigger stage now. We're gonna have more space for people to come and enjoy themselves. And the best thing is that we're gonna keep our model of all events are always donation pay based. They're pay what you want. Because the most important thing is that everything's affordable and accessible to people. Usually when companies or organizations are growing, their ticket prices are going higher as well. But the main thing that we started in the portal in the beginning was that first year all events were free. No one ever had to pay to come. But obviously we're a business, but I didn't want to be like these other companies where it's like now you got to pay $50 just to step into the building. It's pay what you want always at the portal. So I leave it off there. We just keep it expanding. We keep swimming. We're gonna navigate these waters and more life for us, more life for everyone involved, and more life for art and creatives.
Willie, I want to take a moment to celebrate and to congratulate you and your whole team for being where you are right now. Congratulations. Ugh. So happy for you because I heard I knew a part of what you were saying, but then after this update, I'm just amazed. And like you said, it's just the beginning. I can't wait to see where it continues to evolve.
Thank you.
Um, I had like 5 questions after what you responded. But I want to focus on one. Why do you think that you went from wanting to have one event to 4 or 5 events a month?
Ooh, good question. So originally, the one event a month that we were doing, and like I said, that whole year, that first year, all the events were free. So every month we had that one event. It was always free, no charge for folks. We started that because I wanted to build trust in the community. I wanted to build that connection with people, with other creatives and artists that a lot of us have been like done dirty, and it's a lot of artists and creatives are very hesitant to like trust certain spaces or to feel like I'm welcomed here or whatnot. So I wanted to build that like sense of community, sense of trust, sense of belonging in the beginning. Um, but what started happening is that as we expanded, also the community expands, and we start seeing that now we have like multi sectors of creatives and artists and interests and topics of things. So where in the beginning, those one event a month were just they were swim events where it's spoken word and emotions. So they were all just spoken word events. But we were allowing other type of like artistry disciplines to come in. So even though it was just spoken word in the beginning, after the first few months, we had people that are coming in and playing, their saxophone. We shout out Algo. He always came and started playing his saxophone. We have people that go up there and just read their writings. And it was so cool because it started becoming even intergenerational, where we have youth from like the age of 11, 12 coming and showcasing their stuff. And then we even have folks in their 50s, 60s, spitting knowledge to us and putting us onto game and giving us some wisdom. Um, so when we started expanding, we started seeing, like, whoa, we have all these different type of people come in, all these different type of artists. Let's give all these different type of arts and disciplinaries their own showcase. Let's give them their own event. So from going just from spoken word and motion events, we started going to the swim concert series where we started having concerts at the portal. Then we started doing open mics where we're like, hey, we have so many people doing so many different things. Hey, just come on and do whatever it is that you do. Um, we started doing comedy jams, which was really cool because I never saw myself in that world of comedy. But I was like, we all love to laugh. Let's just make it in a healthy way. And that's the key word for all the events is that a lot in the beginning, people thought we were throwing parties and it was just like some regular nightlife stuff. And I'm like, yeah, some events run through the night, but this is more of like, it's not a nightclub. This is like healthy lifestyle, healthy nightlife, healthy, outlets and expressions where, we're not doing stuff because we're trying to forget about stuff. We're doing stuff to heal and to come together and be happy. But yeah, that's really why we went from one event a month to 4 or 5, several events a month, because we realized we have all these people in the community that do all these different things. And the main thing was to be like, originally, like when I created Swim in the portal, it was about myself. Like it was a project of me expressing the things I was going through. But then I realized I'm like, wow, there's so many talented people out here that never get seen. And that was my goal after that was like I need to make sure people get seen and people get heard and people get to connect with other people that might need this. People that are just watching in the audience sometimes need that art to allow things to certain things for process. But yeah, to answer the question, it was just we have so many people doing so many different things, so many amazing things that I was like, all right, everything needs its own thing now, so that it doesn't get like lost in just like, oh wait, I thought it's just spoken words. It's like, no, it's a whole world of things. And we have all the people that are, you know, living in those worlds all the time that come together and be like, look, this is what it looks like. So for us to be able to throw those concert series, comedy jams, open mics, and all that other stuff, it was a result of not what we wanted to do, but what we saw was already forming within itself, within the community.
Really amazing.
I appreciate you.
Especially how, going back to one of my first questions, how do you create a healthier community. So, what I hear from your conversation is
Yeah,
listening from what community wants and adopting your programming to make it intersectional, intergenerational, based on what the community's input is.
yeah. Wow, that's a good way to summarize it.
The listening part, which is so
Yes.
important. And again, we could go on so many ways. And it's actually hard to start the conversation. We could. I feel like we need. I think we need like our own series,
I was
Willie.
gonna say that. Yeah, one episode's not enough. We're gonna need a whole show for
Oh,
ourselves.
it's so hard. It's so hard. But listen, we will always have more opportunities to continuing to learn from one another, and also from listeners to learn from you, visit you all. Um, to conclude the conversation, is there something that you would like to close us off with?
Yes. Um, so from me to you and to everyone else, on my journey getting to this part in my path, you know, I would say one of the most important factors is faith, right? And faith could look in so many ways. It's not in a religious aspect. I'm very spiritual, but faith in yourself, faith in the knowing and the belief of the things you do are for the right reason, um, and the faith in the inner feelings that you receive, you know, the downloads that come through that make you create. You know, you people create for a reason. Um, don't let nothing distract you out here, because that's what everything's trying to do. Like, it's trying to take that vision, that faith of your inner knowing of what your purpose is away. There's so many distractions out here, and a lot of things are designed to distract us, to take our attention away from things. And we're all here, you know, law of attraction and trying to manifest and bring things into our lives. And when we're talking about like attracting things, right? Attraction, but they're doing distractions. Everything's distracting what we're trying to attract. We're trying to stay on track. Everyone stay on track, but they're trying to get us off track. Everything's trying to get us off track. And us healing right now is so important coming out of the pandemic, because there's going to be a lot of subconscious things that are distracting us, right? A lot of subconscious things within ourselves that are going to take us off track, that are going to get us confused and doubt what our purpose and our faith and our vision is, right? Um, so keep that faith strong in yourself and everything that you're doing. Believe in yourself and know that if you're getting these thoughts, these emotions, these inner feelings, this intuition, these instincts, like follow that. Sometimes things don't make sense. And when people ask me of like, how did I get here? They want a logical answer. They want step by step of this is what I did and this is how it works and this is the only way it works. No, there's no rules to create. There's no one way, you know. So just keep swimming, keep navigating these waters, you know. Don't let nothing stop you and don't let nothing discourage you, you know. um it's so important right now, especially in these times, because the real enemy is going to be within ourselves, you know. So we have to be our own best friends, you know. Be your own best friend, love yourself, and that's how the healing really activates. Yeah, and other than that, drink some water, right? Water's life.
Yes. Hydrate yourself,
Yeah.
focus, have faith, and persevere.
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you so much for that closing, Willie. How can people learn more about you and your work? How can people come out and support you? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, definitely. You go to williecontraband.com. You could look me up on Instagram. Instagram has a lot of my stuff. You could see my whole journey on Instagram, scrolling through there. So Instagram is gonna be at willie.contraband. Other than that, you can go to www dot where we at swimwater.us, and that shows a lot of stuff that we do with the organization. All the things we've done, like our programs that we run, Water Wednesdays, Thirsty Thursdays, how we help the community, how we help college students, how we help the homeless community. Um, and other than that, yeah, those are my main spaces. Yeah, I'm not too spread out in the interweb.
Wonderful, Willie. Willie Acosta, thank you so much for the opportunity to learn from you and getting a taste of the work that you do for the community. So, again, this is Antonia Lanise closing out for Durham Creative Voices Rising. This Durham Creative Voices Rising episode is proudly supported by Bull City Strong and its Say Something Strong project. Bull City Strong is a community based partnership aimed at reducing the increased risk of COVID 19 among historically marginalized populations in Durham County, including Black and Hispanic communities. This podcast is brought to you by Antonio Alanis Art, where we are dedicated to amplifying artists' voices and fostering wellness within our community through the arts. Here are 4 ways that you can show your support. Join the conversation in your community on how the arts can create a healthier and more equitable world for everyone. Leave a review of this podcast wherever you listen to it. Share this episode with other artists and community leaders who believe that the arts are crucial to moving forward in a world with COVID-19. Visit the Bull City Strong Durham page at the Durham County Department of Public Health and explore Antonio Alanis Art website at antonioalanisart.com. Thank you for your support.